Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be talking about the changes that are coming with the 3.1.4 patch on PTS, which is only just a few. There was some adjustments to the way executions work. They are no longer an additive bonus from things like Minor and Major Berserk, Mighty and all that. They actually get a multiplicative thing. It multiplies, okay? You just multiply and there, you're done. You get a multiplied effect instead of an additive effect. And if you guys are wondering what a multiplicative effect is, it's basically you take the percentage and multiply it against that percentage to get another value, which you add to the percentage, the total, like the 300%, total. And usually it's not even, it's more like dividing. So it's like you divide it against that and you get this number, and then you go, okay, this is what the percentage value is. But it basically adds to it that way, or it multiplies into it that way. So like it does very similar to the way Bastion affects shields. If it's in a base number, it's additive. If it's it's a percentage value of that base number. If it's a percentage, it multiplies into that percentage. So like 30, if it's you get 10% of 33, you get 3%, so on and so forth. That's how the new thing's going to work with the executes. Only the execute skills. There's only like, I think Sorks have 2. Then there's like one on the two-handed. The Nightblade has 1. The Templar has 1. I don't know if the Warden has an execute. I really don't think they do, and I know that a lot of other classes, some of the other classes don't have an execute either, so it's like, okay. But they do have other things that other classes don't, so. They also made a fix to Toryg's Pack. It is now a multiplicative bonus as well, instead of an additive bonus. So like when you take an infused weapon in Toryg's Pack together, it doesn't add 30% to 30%. It's actually 30% of 30%. So it's only you're only getting 9% more in damage. So it's like 39%. Actually, it's a little bit more than that, but you get the point. You're getting that added bonus to that damage. And so we're not going to see a huge increase in these Oblivion setups and stuff. It's actually better to run something like a shock on a dual wield or a flame on a two-handed for a DK, because then they can get applied burning through that weapon and they can use it very similar to the way you would a melee weapon. They're going to get the regular damage of that weapon plus that bonus damage. So you're looking at about 10 to 15k damage, or 10 to 12k damage that way versus the other way. So it kind of balances out there. And Toryg's Pack, with Oblivion damage, like everybody's freaking out on the forums, oh, it's gonna be just devastating. Here's the thing: if you're going against a Sork using damage shields and you're using it for that purpose, yeah, better hope they don't out heal the damage that you're doing to them. On top of that, they probably will, and they'll have you dead before you get a chance to kill them. The second thing is, if you're using it on anybody else, there's ways to mitigate damage through healing. And you can out-heal 3,000 damage faster than you can out-heal burst damage. And it's not burst damage. This is every 1.4 seconds that you're going to be able to apply that effect. So every 1.4 seconds, you can apply that Oblivion damage. So within 1 second, you can heal 3,000. So it's not a big deal. And if you can't play that way, I don't know what to tell you. It is a little powerful. I'm not going to lie. It is like Oblivion damage is kind of powerful, but it's not the end all be all for PvP. It really isn't. Like, I've faced people running Oblivion Torags on the live right now, and let me tell you, they can't hold up to a tank that can mitigate that much damage. Like, literally, just go ahead, beat on me. It's like they're not even hurting you. And if you have damage shields, they're not going to hurt you anyway. So they can't do enough damage. They'd have to do that plus burst. And it's kind of hard to do that when you're using an infused weapon. So Torag's did get a fixed. There was some CC stuff where they fixed some, like how CCs can be applied and how you can break free from them, that kind of thing. But it's like not really going to be noticeable in my opinion. But the main thing I want to talk about in this video is meta play, because it's something that a lot of us have been getting asked a lot lately. I have been getting asked on a daily basis almost, what's going to be the new meta for like Magic of Sorts or Magic of Decay or Stam this, Stam that. And honestly, it's really preference based and it's very situational based. So it's really there's gonna be a lot of different variety there. Now, I know Owlcast just released a video saying that he was gonna be releasing builds on his website on the meta that Hodor is using. So that's kind of a cool thing that he's doing that. I know that Gilliam has been working on some new stuff, lots of math, and it's really cool because it's been helping me to understand. It's always helped me to understand more about the game when you learn the numerical values of certain things and how they interact with each other and how they work. I might not agree with all the math to a sense, especially when it comes to resistances and damage reduction, because of knowing game design. I know how a lot of companies like do that kind of functionality, and it will give you the same results if you combine them together in a way, but you're still going to be off by the amount of damage mitigation a character can do if the game works the way I think it does, where your resistances block a certain amount of damage and your mitigation reduces the amount of damage that you take from what it blocks. So if you're a tank, you have 32 or 33,500 resistances, you're blocking 50% of the damage, and then you take that 50%, you take that damage that you take from that enemy, and you cut it in half by 50%, then you take the damage mitigation, which we can't ever have 100% damage block. It's impossible. The only way you can do that is through damage shields, which negate the damage completely. So that's really the only way you can do that, to mitigate that much damage. So, but the other thing I want to, before I continue on, I want to say that I'm going to cover something with gear progression in this game and why this game doesn't work the same as other MMOs. We'll get to that in a minute, but before I do, I need to finish off what I'm talking about with the meta. So the meta is going to be very situational when it comes to what traits to use and what weapons to use, like what weapon traits to use and what Mundus stones to use and what champion points to use, because it's going to be based on the build structure. The build itself, like what gear are you running, how much, how much pin do you have, how much do you not have, what do you have here, what do you have here, and you're basically going to be making a lot of compensations with champion points, with your traits, with your Mundus stones kind of thing to get those right values in there, so you get a more accurate setup for your characters, so they're going to be efficient at what they're trying to do, whether you're playing a DPS, a tank, or a healer. I know that a lot of people are, like, oh, well, healer's not going to change, the tank meta is not going to change. The tank meta is going to change because of the new dungeons. And the reason why it's going to change, it's going to go right back to what it was. It's going to be Eben, Alkosh, this. People have had enough time to become comfortable with Halls of Fabrication, and if you're comfortable with Halls of Fabrication, you know how much health you need for it, and you know how much resistance you need for it, you know what skills you need to bring to complete that content. So once people get an understanding of that, that's all it is, and then you can make adjustments for it, like, oh, well, I don't need 40k health anymore, I need about 35, I need about 32, oh wait, 28 will be fine. And once people get comfortable, it'll go right back to what it was before, where it was Alkosh, Eben, and Bloodspawn will be back to the tank meta because it was the most viable option. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can go like Plague Doctor and Eben if you want to keep that that non-selfish set on yourself to where you can give everyone 100 health. You can go with that combo. It will be a really good combo, especially if you're running that mixed with the the two different monster sets of Chuden and Pirate Skeleton. If you're running those two sets, you'll be fine. If you want to run those two sets with the Bloodspawn, you can do that. There's a lot of different options there that you can go with. You can go with Green Pact and Eben. If you're comfortable with the Alkosh, but not comfortable with your health pool, you can go Plague Doctor Alkosh and go try stats on all of it, so you can get the most out of it, kind of thing. You can run that and become effective, you know, with tanking. And then either way you go, you can go Magicka or Stamina tanking if you want, or you can just dump it all in health. It's all up to you, really, and how you want to play your tank build. But Enchanted or Infused, Crusher will always be on your main hand, and on your back bar, you know, you have a variety. I like to run, personally, Decisive, because I like the ultimate gen on my meta tank, because I do have one, and, you know, I'm not going to keep it a secret forever. I do have a meta tank that I do play, and I do run Decisive on the back bar. I'm just bored of it. I can't get into it too often. Like, I can play it every once in a while, but honestly, I get bored of playing the meta, because it's, to me, that kind of tanking is dull. So, meta healers, same thing. There's not much changing in that sense. Like, unless you want to change to a powered weapon, which is going to be really good this time around. Like, you can run a powered main hand, and on your offhand you can run, you know, charged, or you can run infused, whatever you need to, kind of thing. But I would definitely say use a powered main hand, maybe an infused back bar with the spell and weapon damage on it. The reason why I say spell and weapon damage is just to boost that capabilities of your character's healing effectiveness, so you can boost that. Because all you need to do is hit them with a light attack, it'll proc, boom, doom, just go right at it, you know, and then pop a few heals on the front bar. You're going to have that boosted, you know, healing factor. So really cool. This next update's just going to be really cool, because it does allow for really good build diversity. And that brings us around to the gear system of this game. Elder Scrolls doesn't have a linear progression system, and because of that, they don't have linear gear progression. They have a horizontal gear progression system once you hit level, you know, CP 160, and it comes down to a preference of choice in what you want your gear to be. Like, a lot of people that follow the meta are going to go for meta gear sets. If the meta changes, they're going to change their gear to fit the meta. Whether it's a crafted set, a drop set, or a dungeon set, a lot of these different sets take a long time to earn. Like, Julianus isn't one that you can just, like, day one go craft. You have to earn 6 traits in 6 different sets, you know, in each piece of gear. And that takes a long time. That's not something you do in a few hours. That takes a month to get those kind of traits sometimes. And then once you have those traits, then you can craft that Julianus. So crafted sets are just like dungeons and trial sets. It takes a long time to earn. And it should take a long time to earn to be able to craft those better sets and stuff. So there's a lot of things that are offset here when it comes to the difference in traits, the difference in Mundus stones, the different types of gear, and how they can benefit you based on the build that you're going for. Like, I tested over this last weekend, or this last week, the last thing I tested, I actually got the gear sets out here just so you guys could see, because I tested on another character. But I tested, hold on, give me a sec, Rattle Cage with Treasure Hunter, and those two pieces together were phenomenal. Like, those two sets together work really well together, like amazingly well, because it gives you a bunch of crit with Treasure Hunter. It doesn't give you quite as much as Mother Sorrow, but it gives you enough. And if you're using a precise weapon, it boosts it up. Rattle Cage gives you a lot of spell damage, and it gives you 100% uptime of bonus magic damage. Now, you do lose some spell like recovery and stuff, so you can make that up with just leaving the glyphs a little bit alone, and you can get Rattle Cage with magic on it, like that's arcane. You don't just get the healthy. It takes a lot of farming, but you can get a full set of it in arcane, so that's why it's a really powerful set for a Magicka person. And if you run that with Illumbras, you have a super powered DPS person, because you don't need the Mage's Guild ability on your bar. You don't need the, you know, major sorcery. You don't need those buffs. You can actually get away without having those buffs. So you can take a lot of other skills and give your character different capabilities. Like, it works really well with a Templar, Not so much with a Sork, not so much with a Nightblade, but it works really well. Well, Nightblade can get away with it, but it works much better with a DK because they can utilize those things and get a lot of benefits from it. It works really well with the Templar because they don't have any other way of getting major sorcery or major proficiency, or whatever it is, magical proficiency. They don't have any way of getting it, so getting it from those sources for free without needing any outside help really allows them to broaden their reach with the kind of builds and stuff. And it's really cool. I mean, I've messed with it a little bit, and it worked out really well because I don't have access to certain sets on here, so we're stuck with template gear. And working with template gear gives you a lot of ability to tinker with stuff that you don't normally use. So when you try to push the boundaries of certain sets that you don't normally see used, you can really push the boundaries, especially if you understand the math in the game and know how to minimax that type of thing to its full potential. And yes, this is just one of those kind of builds I'm just kind of tinkering with. I was going to try it with Tremor Scale for a tank build, trying to give me the most, optimized setup kind of thing. So I've been tinkering with stuff. I don't like this right here where I lose all the extra defenses. Like if you're playing a tank, you're going to want to go sword and board and an eye staff, or sword and board and a defending weapon of some type on the back bar, because that defending weapon is going to give you that little bit of boost in resistances. But if you're running sword and board in both bars, you won't have to worry. You won't notice too much. Like I'm seeing here, I'm 24k spell, 2500 physical, and that's because of the way I adjusted my champion points. But yeah, this game doesn't use, like I said, the linear progression system. You can't play it like World of Warcraft. You can't expect it to be like World of Warcraft. And when I see a lot of people saying trial sets should be better than dungeon sets and this, they almost are in a lot of ways. Like they are some of the most used sets for stamina DPS, for magic DPS. They were for a long time. In fact, right now, even if you look, it's really hard to say that some of the trial sets wouldn't be good for a Magicka build, because I mean I can go in here and for a Magicka build you got like the Wise Mage. It's a really good set. Then you got War Machine, is it? I think, or Master Architect. One of those two is a really good set for it. Then there's Destructive Mage is a really good set. Those are two really good sets to combo, but they don't, it's really hard to find that good combination to make them work really well. Especially if you're going to go, oh, well, I want to use a Maelstrom staff, but I also want to use this crafted staff, or I want to use this staff, and this and that. So this is where minimaxing comes into play, and this is why sometimes crafted sets do outdo the trial sets, or they outdo the drop sets in the world, because crafted sets, some of them take a long time to build up to where you can craft a full set of it, and then you've got other things on top of it that kind of play on that. Like some require certain materials, or not certain, well, they do kind of require certain materials if you want them in a certain appearance or a certain look. So it can be kind of a pain to do that, but if you're just going for a basic set, whatever, it doesn't take a super long time, but it can take a while, is my point. And that's what this game's all about. It's about horizontal progression. It's not so much about vertical progression as it is horizontal. And I know a lot of people don't quite understand that or like that, but it's kind of the thing that sets ESO and games like ESO and Guild Wars 2 apart from the standard MMO, is they've got the soft trinity. They don't have a hard trinity. They don't have the serious vertical progression, gear progression. They have more of a horizontal gear progression system, which allows for greater play styles and more variety of play in different builds. Now, is there going to be a meta? Of course there's going to be a meta. Outcast will have it done in a while. Just give them some time. I'm just kidding. Just give us some time, the rest of us, to go through the numbers, because there is some stuff that's coming up that, like I said, like the Tooth Row or the Treasure Hunter and Rattle Cage. After testing it and seeing like, damn, this is really good together, it made me go back and look at other sets and say, well, are these going to be good, viable sets now? Because they offer these advantages over this. Because it does. It makes you look at a lot of different things in the game, and we're still working on numbers, and we probably won't have the meta down even before the Clockwork City comes out, you know, later this year. We probably won't have the meta down, none of us will, by that time. I mean, I know I'll have my own meta down because my playstyle and my build structures and stuff doesn't, it's not so much about maximizing your character's like total, you know, DPS in, you know, the DPS build, but maybe offering a little bit more. The same thing goes with my healer builds. It might not just be a healer build. It might be a healer with a little bit of DPS. My tank build might be a tank with DPS, or it might be a support tank, or it might be this kind of tank. Because there's so many different options that are viable options, that the meta doesn't set a standard anymore. It's more of player preference that sets the standard. And I'm glad that they kind of did this, because it does allow for a lot of really creative design to go into the game when it comes to build structure and people's preference of play style. Like, there are people who like to play offensive tanks versus a super supportive tank. Some people like to play super defensive tanks. Some people like to play, you know, offensive healers or defensive healers. There's a lot of different play styles. You know, I mean, I could go through probably 20 different types of healers, and it would like rack your mind. You guys would be sitting there going, "What the hell? Where'd this guy come from?" And then I could list every MMO off, and then it might make some sense to you, like, oh, this guy just knows a lot about the different structures from other MMOs and how they can be intertwined into this game. And that's just it. That's the thing that this game does, is it allows us to intertwine other game designs, you know, like builds from other games, like the Druid. Like, now that we have the Warden, they can be really defined into a Druid build, especially if you wanted to make them like a Druid from like EQ, and you wanted them to be like that kind of Druid, you could do that. Or you want them to be like a DDO Druid, or you want them to be like this kind of Druid from WoW, or you want them to be a Shaman like this, or this, or this. There's so many different varieties in there that we can really go into a lot of different, like I said, because we have a soft trinity, we don't have a locked trinity or a hard trinity. So we have a lot more variety there when it comes to build structure, build diversity, build variety, that we can get away with a few things. And some people might enjoy that. Like, somebody might say, wow, I really like that idea of using two infused weapons on this character, because I can do that and it gives me this much damage, and I can make it Torix Pact. I can also go with the spell power cure with it, and on the back bar I can use a healing staff that's powered, and on the front bar I can use these two infused weapons, so I can go for kind of a mix of DPS and healing, and I can help my group by doing that. You know, because it just depends on the situation, honestly. Like I said, builds are very situational, especially with the new update, with the new changes. It creates a very situational system. And, you know, like I said, you know, it's a matter of like saying, hey, do I want this like singular build, or do I want this build that has variety? So that's what it comes down to, guys. That's what the new meta is going to be. And there's nothing we can do, like, to change it, other than adjust to it and come up with it. You know, like I said, it's going to be. I honestly think it would be better if, like, to sit down with some people and say, hey, guys, what would be the best setup for a trial group, and go through and create the trial meta, create the, you know, because I know Alcast said in his video that the meta for dungeons and trials is going to be very similar, but you got to take this into consideration. Trial groups is 12-man, dungeons are 4-man, and when you take 4 people out of a trial and put them into a dungeon, they have to intermix really well with traits and weapons and things like that. Otherwise, you're going to have to carry like 3 different weapons with you at all time, with 3 different traits, because of the different build structure of inside that smaller group. And it does, but it doesn't work. Like, I admit trials are a lot harder than dungeons or vet dungeons, but you do have to think about that and take that into consideration. Like if you want to have a really good dungeon group, you're going to want a Magicka DPS, a Stamina DPS, a kind of tanky tank, but one that's kind of like a tanky or offensive tank that does a little bit of both, like right in the middle. And then you're going to want a healer that's a little bit of a healer, but with some DPS capabilities, because it's all about bringing the boss down fast, like Alcaz says. When you go into a dungeon or you go into a trial, it's not about trying to, like just get the big numbers. It's about burning things down as fast as you can and getting them out of the way so you can complete the content. If you want builds like that, then you need to make your group work in an organized setup. And in this case, you would want an offensive tank with the really tanky capabilities, but the ability to do some damage. You would want a healer that does some damage. You would want your DPS to be focused on DPS, but synergizing the team together in such a way that they work in unison, kind of like a working cog. Like you want those gears to fit in the right order to make that clock tick. You've got to do the same thing with your group. And it's kind of something that my drill instructor told me in the service. If we're here to build you into a well-oiled working machine. That's it. That's our job. We're here to train you and teach you and get you guys perfected, so that way when you go out into do your job, you know what you need to do, and you guys can do it in an organized way that you're trained to do. And it's the same thing here when you're in a dungeon or you're in a trial. You have to be able to work as a group against the mechanics. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I could go on, but that's why I'm loving this update so much, is because it does bring build diversity to the forefront. Even though, we're going to have a meta. We're going to have a really strong meta. I promise you that. We will have a strong meta from, Alcaz is going to have this really amazing meta probably. Gillian probably work on a few builds. I know he likes to focus a lot on rogues, or the Nightblade. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do that, plus a few other things. Woolery probably come out with a few tank builds. Hopefully he comes out with a few more things than that. And then if Deltia comes back in time, I don't know, because I don't know how long his stuff, his personal life stuff is going to take him, but it would be nice to see him come back and give his thoughts and stuff on to the matter. But I honestly don't know. But it would be really cool to see more of the community come forward and say, hey, these are, this is my new tank idea. Because I do think that there is a variety out there. I think there's a lot of choice, especially beginner tanks. If you guys want to know what's going to be good for the beginner tank, Plague Doctors and Night Mother's Gaze is a good combo. If you have a lot of stamina people that you're playing with. If you're playing with a lot of Magicka people, it might be better to go with a Magicka tank, and Shulks and Plague Doctors might be a better option for you. If you don't have Bloodspawn yet, Shulks and Plague Doctors, like I said, would be really good. If you have Plague Doctor, or you have the Bloodspawn, I would definitely say go with the Plague Doctor Night Mothers until you can get Abin. Then go Abin, Night Mothers, and Bloodspawn until you can get Alkosh. And if you can't go with that, if you don't want to go with that one set, there is another set. I'm trying to remember what it is. Sunderflame. It comes out of City of Ash 1 or 2. You can get that set also to compensate for what Night Mothers can do. Now, when you do Night Mothers, you have to make a crit tank so you can get those crit hits in there. So you do need to have the Thief Stone. You do need to have a precise weapon on the main bar. I'd go decisive on the back bar personally. If I was running Shulks for a Magicka tank, I'd probably go the other way around. But that's all, like I said, it's all personal preference. But beginner tanks, that's going to be what you're going to want to do. Infused front weapon with a Crusher enchant back bar. You can go with whatever you want. And it doesn't matter the set. But I would say go precise on one of the weapons if you're using that one Night Mother's Gaze to get that extra crit in there, or that extra pin in there, physical pin. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, there's no other things I can really say other than that. And if you guys are, wondering about healing, just use the same thing. Just maybe go with a powered weapon. Give yourself some extra healing effectiveness if you want, because powered is really well off right now. 9% healing effect on a staff. Whew, that's amazing. So yeah, but that's pretty much it. I mean, I could, like I said, I can go through and explain every kind of build concept you can think of, like build customization, build design, that kind of thing, that you could go with. But there's just too much. There's too many. There's too many different variables that they can play onto the different builds, and based on the different gear and the different traits and different Munda stones and all that kind of stuff. There's just too much. But I will say this, I've seen some pretty interesting builds already being worked on, and some of them are looking pretty promising, so we'll have to see. But that's it for now, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Be greatly appreciated. If you guys want to see more videos by me, hit that subscribe button. Also greatly appreciated. I try to release videos on a weekly basis. Right now, I'm trying to get more out, but there's just been too much testing going on, to be honest. And when you want to talk about some of that stuff that you've been testing, like, I would love to show you guys numbers and everything, but I can't do the parses like Alcast can, and honestly, I don't think the test skeleton is like the right environment to give numbers, because it's not accurate. I'd much rather show you guys them in action. I don't want to do it on the test server because it's a test environment. I want to show you in the live environment, like how well these things work. So we'll just wait until live comes out. I do have a lot of builds I'm working on. Those should be coming out starting next week and carry on through for a couple weeks after. I'm out farming like crazy gold and resources and materials, so I can craft all these things and also farm all these things, so that way when I do bring them forward, you guys can go, oh, okay. But here's the thing, I also think, well, you know, I'll wait on that. We'll wait on that in the last part. So, but yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.